Hello, welcome. I'm Josh Schimmels, publisher and CEO of the Los Angeles Business Journal. Thank you all so much for joining us for our next discussion in the 2026 Real Estate Trends Mid-Year Series, which today is going to be focused on economic development, design, and construction. Over the past several years, development across the county has seen a lot of movement, changing market conditions, rising construction costs, shifting business needs, and growing demand for what we like to look at as thoughtful, sustainable, and efficient projects have reshaped how our communities, how our businesses, and how the industry's project teams are approaching growth today. We're seeing innovation and collaboration that's creating new opportunities. Cities are finding new ways to attract investment. Developers are exploring new delivery models and construction methods, and communities are working together to support long-term economic growth. Today's conversation is going to explore the forces shaping development across the county, from economic growth and business attraction to things like permitting, community engagement, design innovation, construction strategies, and the opportunities that are going to be defining the future of our region for many years to come. We're joined today by leaders who represent different perspectives across the development landscape. They're going to share their insights on what they're seeing today, how the industry is adapting, and where they ultimately see the greatest opportunities lying ahead. Before we begin, I want to extend our appreciation to all of our partners. First, a very special thank you to our three diamond sponsors, CBRE, Logos Faith Development, and Trammell Crow Company. Next, I want to thank all of our platinum sponsors for their ongoing partnerships as well. City of Lancaster, City of Ontario, Kidders Matthews, Nixon Peabody, Pankow Builders, and University of Redlands, Los Angeles. Okay, with that, let's get into our great conversation today. I'm excited to introduce our speakers. So please welcome, first off, Elton Murakami, Regional Vice President, Pankow Builders. Sydney Yeseta, Manager, Economic Development, City of Lancaster. And our moderator today, Heather Flood, Dean, College of Architecture, Design and Media, University of Redlands, Los Angeles. Heather, welcome. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Josh. I'm thrilled to be speaking today with Elton Murakami and Sydney Yeseta about the ways design and construction are driving economic development in Los Angeles. As mentioned, I'm an architect, educator, and academic leader. I've worked in education and practice to shape the future of design while advancing innovation. And as a longtime Angelino, my perspective is grounded in opportunities and challenges of Los Angeles, including my firsthand experience of rebuilding my home after it was lost in the 2025 wildfires. This has deepened my commitment to resilient, equitable, and sustainable built environments. So let's get started. The first question. Development across Los Angeles County continues to evolve as communities, businesses, and project teams respond to changing market conditions. To kick things off, I'd like to ask each of you, looking at where we are today, what gives you the most confidence about the future of development and economic growth across Los Angeles County? Elton?
Yeah, to start off, Heather, I think for us as a builder, it's really separating the two markets that we're in between the public market and the private side, because they've been actually acting very differently. And it's interesting, with Cindy on there, we can talk about the public side, so it'd be fun here. But what we've seen is 2025 was pretty slow as far as procurements on both sides. It just seemed like there was a lot of expected procurements that come out, but they didn't come out in 25 as much as we thought. And 2026, this first 6 months, there's been a flood of procurements that have been issued. And so then that's very encouraging then again, this is the public side. And we do a lot of design build work. So especially encouraging there that a lot of progressive design build and design build projects are being issued now. And so then, so what that I see on the public side, what that means on construction, with design build, you're going to have like at least a 1 to 2 year fuse before it really hits the construction economy side or economic impact. So I see that happening. On the private side, it's been pretty tight. It's just, since with the interest rates where they are, the private money has been really tight. The year started off like there was some momentum that private developers were actually looking for updates on their budgets, and it seemed like it would be going in the right direction. And then it kind of slowed down in the second quarter, and then it's weird. This year, it's interesting. Recently, we're getting a lot more solicitations now on people wanting to get more engaged on their jobs on the private side. So we'll see. It's encouraging just because that usually again also ends up with a 1 to 2 years. So I'm thinking, between end of 27 and early 28, that there should be a pretty big influx on the construction economic side.
Wow, that's really interesting to hear what's happening, particularly in the private sector. Sydney, what are you seeing in Lancaster?
Yeah, thank you, Heather, and thank you, Elton. I think it's really important to kind of bridge that gap between the private and the public sector. And so what Elton was sharing, we're hearing kind of the same things. There is a little bit of uncertainty and interest rates and all of that. But I think one of the great things that LA has going for it is all of the economic engines that we have going on right now with the Olympics and some of the other stuff that, the World Cup that just kind of finished. And I think building off of that momentum kind of sets LA apart from some of the other regions. I mean, LA is still one of the biggest economies, in the world and in the country. And so, with that alone, we already kind of have that as an advantage. And so I love to see what we're able to do kind of building off of the momentum over the next couple of years with some of that sports tourism and stuff that's going on. I think here specifically in Lancaster and across LA County, we're seeing stronger collaboration between cities and developers, the educational institutions and the private sector. It seems like everyone recognizes that there are challenges, whether that be housing or workforce development, infrastructure needs. And I see from the public standpoint, even as cities like regionalism, we have our neighboring city to the south, Palmdale, we're working together on things. And even from the economic development standpoint, like other cities are reaching out to find out how one city is doing something or solving these issues. And I think that, altogether the public and the private are working together on that. And so, which is really great because I think that we're all working towards the same goal, and that's what's going to keep the momentum going and the growth across LA County.
Sydney, I'd like to build off of that for a moment. When it comes to attracting investment and creating opportunities for growth, what types of companies is the city of Lancaster actively trying to attract?
So I love that question. Everyone would say they want the unicorn project, right? We want a project that's going to create thousands of jobs and bring us sales tax revenue. That is every city's goal. That would be our perfect storm. I think, we have a bunch of stuff that we're targeting, whether that be expanding our aerospace and defense, our advanced manufacturing, logistics and warehousing, clean energy, you name it. We're not necessarily going to say no to it. But I think the more important question is not so much what industries we're targeting, but why we're targeting them. And so our focus here in Lancaster is to really create quality jobs that will not only build a resilient economy, but will also allow our residents to work in the same community that they live in. We have a huge influx of people who are driving every morning down the 14 freeway into the LA basin as early as 3:30 a.m., 4 a.m., and then coming back at the end of the day, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., stuck in hours of traffic both ways. And so really, we're targeting industries that are going to bring those jobs here, and, create a community where our residents have opportunities professionally and personally.
Yeah, just chiming in there, Heather, just real quick. It's funny, Sydney, that we actually have workers on the field for our side that are coming from Lancaster all the way out to LA. And like you said, making that huge commute and the commitment, they have a lot of commitment to do that. So then, I can totally see the drive to want to keep people and allow people to have probably like 4 hours of their life back, right, of their commute, potentially. So that's cool.
Yeah, you think about the change in someone's quality of life when you get them off of the freeway. Not only quality of life, but also their health. We've seen a lot of studies where people are not living as long, or they're not as healthy because they're spending so much time in their car. So that is our goal. That is my number one goal as economic development manager here, is to get people jobs here locally.
I love that emphasis on resilient and livable communities, and thinking about how you are cultivating a workforce that facilitates that. Elton, Pankow has been an advocate for progressive design build and other collaborative delivery models. As projects become increasingly complex, how are you seeing these approaches help developers better manage risk, improve coordination, and ultimately deliver stronger project outcomes?
Yeah, one thing I'm going to touch upon what Sydney actually started with is the word collaboration. And again, so that's progressive design build, right? As far as, if I maybe give a little bit, just a quick one. Penn State, so yeah, maybe you'll appreciate this, Heather, as an academic. Penn State and the Pankow Foundation actually did a study a few years ago about, maximizing project success, and, what were the components in whatever delivery model, but more in integrated delivery model that really realized project success. And it came down to three things. It is like early involvement of the holistic project team, meaning, the designer, the contractor, the trade partners, as well as the owner, obviously the owner. And then the second one was a qualifications-based selection process. It's not only about the bottom line, the dollar, like the hard bid scenario that our industry has been has been on for a while. And then the third is just this cost transparency. So then they really narrowed it down to hundreds of projects across the country. They dissected it and said that these are the three factors. And then, so that leads us to the progressive design build model, right? Where an owner or public agency is able to bring on the team members early in the process. And the way we see that is effective and efficient for better delivery models and risk management is now you have people at the table that are able to utilize what they're good at and what they know at the onset, right? And so that's where I think we see it going. We see the trend is that the progressive design build model allows us to have the conversations early and have the right, say trade partners. They can tell us, hey, we see the steel with the tariffs or COVID or whatever it may have happened be going on the industry. These are the trends that we see happening in cost. Like for instance, right after the pandemic, we saw steel prices jump. And so then it made sense for projects to get designed with concrete, right, which is more readily available, and the price certainty was there. So that kind of, progressive design build model, you can have the right people at the table sooner in the process to make those decisions. And then does, the thing there, it also, it comes with a different mindset as well. And again, it's the collaboration. It's people wanting to get into the room together, as well as recognizing what in a DBIA Design Build Institute really recognizing, saying it's a three-legged stool, right? Where the owner's a leg, the designers are a leg, and the contractor and the trade partners are a leg as well. And then every party has a responsibility. And so it's owning that responsibility in the progressive design build, where everybody, it's not just handing something over the fence and saying, okay, now it's your turn, contractor, to take care of it. So we see a lot of efficiencies in managing risk and improving the coordination and schedule with progressive design build.
Elton, you are preaching to the choir here. I can't even tell you, design build is foundational to our architecture program. No student leaves campus without experiencing real world construction and how that should be integrated into the design process from day one. We really underscore how real world constraints drive innovative design solutions. So let's connect, because I can see some talented students.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah,
right.
That's good.
Okay, so let's talk about business leaders for a moment. They often cite permitting and entitlement timelines as major factors in location decisions. Sydney, what steps has Lancaster taken to make development more predictable and create a more business-friendly environment?
Yeah, thank you, Heather. I'm going to take this moment to do a little bit of a shameless plug and say that Lancaster has been the first and only four-time winner of LAEDC's most business-friendly city in Los Angeles County. So we are very proud of that. But every city is going to tell you that they're business-friendly. Every city is going to say, oh, yes, we can do that. But I like to think that Lancaster thinks a little bit differently. We definitely have learned that predictability is often just as valuable as speed to our larger developers. They don't necessarily want every answer to be yes, but they want us to be able to have clear communication, transparency, consistency, and honesty throughout the process. And so our approach has been getting involved as early as we can, bringing all of the right departments together, planning, engineering, building and safety, identifying any challenges that we can before they become delays. We maintain regular communication throughout the life of the project. We have some of our planners who will meet with some of our developers on a weekly basis, just to touch in and see how the progress is coming, check in, see if there's any delays, see how we can expedite anything if we can. I will say that our entire culture of the city of Lancaster is supportive of development, starting with our council. But even in city manager's office, our city manager was our former city engineer. Our assistant city manager was the former planning manager and community development director. So they themselves understand development. They know what it takes to get developments built. And so starting from that city manager's office seat, people are already knowing when you come in here, like, our culture is to try to get development to happen. And so really kind of trying to partner with the developers as much as we can, keep projects moving. And yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, I think the issue of predictability is a huge misconception when it comes to design and construction, which never follow a straight line. Building codes are not black and white, material costs are not constant, and construction isn't linear. It's an incredibly dynamic process, and I think something Elton touched on in the previous conversation around design build, having a really strong AEC team together will allow for inventive thinking that can manage the client's time and money as they work their way through this very unpredictable process.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that cities, I think a lot of times can get themselves in a box, right? We're a government agency and we can only do this. And, we very much kind of peg ourselves into the walls that we've confined of ourselves. And it doesn't have to be that way. Cities can be creative. Cities, yes, we do have laws that we have to follow. There are requirements. There are certain timelines that we just can't get around, especially here in California with CEQA, stuff like that. But there are ways to be creative that help the private sector and the public sector. And I think that that's where, going back to collaboration, having that mindset, I always kind of joke, like, I wonder what it would be like to work for one of those agencies. And I won't name any names, but we all know certain agencies that just make life a little bit more difficult. And I think to myself, what would it be like to work for one of these agencies? And like, do they just sit at their desk and watch all of these emails come in and not respond to them for weeks, and then one day they're like, okay, I'm going to respond to all these emails? Or is there direction like, hey, from whoever would be their equivalent of the city manager or their city council, I want you guys to find every single way that you can say no, or find every roadblock, because that's just not how it is here. It's reducing the roadblocks, trying to find ways to make development happen. And so I wonder, I'm like, would that be an easier job because I'd get to just say no and it feels like I'm not doing much? Or I don't think I would be able to work in an environment like that. But it's interesting to see how some governmental agencies can be like that, which is unfortunate because sometimes we get a bad reputation. But I think a majority of us are trying to make development happen and do want to partner with the private sector.
Well, it sounds like the region could learn a lot from Lancaster. Elton, Pankow's recently completed 600 San Pedro, a major permanent supportive housing development in downtown Los Angeles. High-density, affordable housing projects require thoughtful approaches to design, financing, and construction. From a design and construction perspective, what efficiencies or innovations helped make a project like this possible?
Yeah, and I think two things for this project for sure to mention is actually this project, 600 San Pedro, was actually a design build. The owner was related in Weingart, and they structured it as a design build. So I think that's one innovation to this product, where it's getting us involved early, really doing the cost studies. And then that also allowed us to study the MEP systems, what's going to be the most cost efficient and optimal system that is to implement within the building. And then the other was the design relative to, how do you fit the most amount of units on a certain size of a lot? And our architect, LRG Architects, they were able to really optimize the design where, it was studio units that function and met all the requirements for funding and the agency requirements, as well as, just having a good, nice living quarter. So I would say like those two things were the innovations that are going to be able to help this market, where you're getting somebody involved early so that there is more price certainty and optimal design happening, and then also the being able to really hyper optimize the size of what's required to get built.
Well, speaking as a citizen who loves Los Angeles, high density, affordable housing is music to my ears. So bravo, that's really exciting. I want to go check out 600 San Pedro.
Yeah, 17 stories and 300 units. So
wow. Congratulations.
Right in the middle of Skid Row.
Yeah, well done. That's fantastic. Sydney, workforce availability remains a key consideration for employers evaluating locations today. How is Lancaster partnering with educational institutions and industry to build a strong talent pipeline?
So I think one of the most important things is getting the right people to the table at the right time and really building those relationships. We're lucky here in the Antelope Valley that we have a pretty strong kind of pipeline through our K through 12 system at the elementary school level, at the high school level, and at our community college, Antelope Valley College, that really do work together to kind of build out what that pipeline looks like for workforce development. As I mentioned, we have a lot of commuters that drive out of the valley every single day. And their goal also is to bring those people to jobs here in the Antelope Valley. So it's great that we're all working on and pulling the rope in the same direction. I think that not only do we have, the educational partners, we have our industry partners that are willing to collaborate and work with the college. The college has a really cool program. It's called our AFAP program, and it allows it teaches people the skills that they would need to get hired at some of our aerospace companies, mainly Lockheed, Northrop, and those like that. And so they get them in, they get them the skills. I think they have like a 96% job placement rate. And that really, it's so successful because the Northrops and the Lockheeds of the world were involved in building out that curriculum and letting the college know, like, hey, this is the things that we need, and these are the skills that we need people to have, whether it be an entry-level position or a little bit higher than that. But also, alongside our educational partners, we also have a few nonprofits and other organizations in the community. Los Angeles Career Center is one of them, where they take at-risk youth that would kind of be in the TAY age group, that 18 to 24 years old, where they would, they don't necessarily have to be foster youth, but kind of just that age group, if you will, and they'll give them on-the-job training in, welding or machine printing and working on cars. Each class, they have a whole cohort that grows through the program together. They do a graduation. Each class, restores parts of a classic car. But they also teach them the soft skills, the stuff that you don't necessarily learn in the classroom, but how to dress professionally, how to show up on time. If you're not there on time, then you unfortunately get kicked out of the program. And so being able to partner with everyone, not just education or industry partners, and being able to build that workforce development. We understand that it's not a one size fits all thing. Workforce development is, has so many branches and everything. And so we're open to, creating those customized training programs, working with the AJCC or ABC on different things to help kind of overcome barriers that individuals might have. But I think ultimately the main thing is that we're all working towards that same goal. And again, everyone wants to bring jobs here to the Antelope Valley, want to get people off the freeway and want to get them here. So just having a really strong pipeline is really important. Not only talent, but also on the other side that's going to help grow that talent.
I agree 100%, Sydney. Public-private partnerships in higher education are incredibly valuable. I've appreciated all of the ones that I've been involved with, allowing us at the university to become centers of innovation while facilitating the professionalization of our students so that they're job ready upon graduation. I think it's really a win-win, and I hope to see more of those things occurring. Elton, Pankow recently expanded its capabilities into wood structures to help address the growing demand for multifamily and affordable housing. As developers evaluate different construction methods, what innovations or approaches do you believe have the greatest potential to deliver quality housing more quickly and cost effectively across Southern California?
Yeah, I think, Heather, like this common theme is, getting the team involved early. Mm-hmm. You do see it often where a lot of these projects are somewhat hard bids that come out and just get pushed out as a hard bid scenario. We are seeing the more successful projects are the owners are getting us involved early, and even if it's just to start earlier in their process to run some budget checks and be kind of in their arm along the way, just periodically, or some of them are hiring us directly for pre-construction and being involved with that process. I think that's a trend that we're starting to see in this market more and more as, there's a lot of busted schedules that we see in this product line in a hard bid scenario. And so then what I see happening also is a sophistication that's now getting built into this sector, where even for us, we're using BIM now on a wood frame projects. All our wood frame residential projects, we're incorporating the utilization BIM. And for those that don't know, it's building information modeling. So basically, we're building it virtually through models on our computers versus prior to going onto the field. And so then I think that sophistication is happening there and supporting better schedules, as well as and then it allows us also, when we're on board early, we can bring the right trade partners early, the framers, the critical trade partners that are really influential to the schedule of the project. We can get them involved early and then plan it out sooner. That's the innovations I see happening in the Type 3 and Type 5 market. For us, it was a big thing to bring that group on board, as far as focusing on this market, because we self-perform concrete, and a lot of these projects have concrete underground parking structures and podiums where you can align that schedule, get that schedule commitment and surety from that team before you come out of the ground. And so then that's that. A lot of that is happening. I see trends in this industry, in this sector. As well as also exploring the modular side, volumetric modular, as units coming in. I don't know if that's totally been price proven yet, but it's still being explored quite a bit, as well as mass timber, with the code allowing mass timber to go higher. We see a lot more curiosity and exploration on that, but not total market. There's not a big market influx.
Thank you, Elton. There are so many interesting things going on related to emerging material and technical capabilities. You mentioned BIM, and I think the capacity to produce a digital twin of the building that you're about to construct really facilitates integrated project delivery. Some really, really exciting things happening. Okay. Sydney, if a CEO were evaluating multiple Southern California cities today, what would you want them to know about Lancaster's competitive advantages and the opportunities available in the region?
Thanks, Heather. So I think one of the great things about Lancaster and the Antelope Valley is that we are part of Los Angeles County, but we're kind of a little bit different than what you would expect LA County to be. We're not, city of LA where we're super built out. We have expansive land opportunities for companies to expand. We have Joshua trees, which are not always a great thing in California now that they are one of the endangered species. But we're not what you think of when you think of the city of LA, which is great because we have room to expand. We have a workforce that can work here. We have competitive operating costs. We're still one of the most affordable cities in Los Angeles County, and I think in the state of California for that matter. And so people can come out here, people can move out here and still be able to afford a house. Companies can relocate or expand within the city because we still have land. But I think, as I've mentioned before too, we really do see ourselves as a city as partners to the private development. And so Sometimes you move into a city and that's it. You develop and then nobody ever talks to you again, or nobody answers your call, or it's hard to get answers or communication. And we don't feel that way. We feel like when people are developing here, they're here because they want to succeed. We want them to succeed, and so really just working together to make that happen, whether that means development while it's happening, getting job fairs set up, or once you're already operational, if you're having issues, coming to us and having us, be able to address those issues and continue to build that relationship. I think also, as I touched on before, having honest conversations. I think we do a pretty good job of letting people know ahead of time of any obstacles that we see they might face, or if something happens and things aren't kind of going the way that we thought that they were going to go, because let's face it, no development project is ever linear, and nothing ever goes as smoothly as everyone would hope that it would go. But being able to, address those issues head on, tackle them whenever we need to, in an open and honest way, I think is great. And we're always willing to, look at ways that we can make it work, whether that's through incentives or, just coming up with creative solutions to issues that might arise. We're always willing to have that conversation to figure out a way to make that happen, so that we can work together. We try not to say no as much as possible. It's not a strong word in our vocabulary here. And if it is a no, it's usually for a reason outside of our control, whether that be, a state law or something that we're just not able to control. But I would say just knowing that there really are a lot of opportunities here in Lancaster, with everything else being so built out. We kind of are the last frontier, if you will, of LA County, and so we are very supportive of development, and we want to see that continue to grow here in Lancaster.
That's exciting. It sounds like Lancaster's really found a sweet spot in the development arena, where it benefits from the infrastructure of a large-scale urban region such as Los Angeles, while still being able to expand, as opposed to having to infill like many other communities in the Southern California area.
You summed it up perfectly, Heather.
Yeah, thank you. So Sydney, again, you spoke about the opportunities communities are working to create and attract. Elton, on the development side, delivering that growth requires finding solutions that meet today's market realities. Cost, as among many other things. In a landscape where high-rise capital has cooled slightly due to interest rates, Pankow's new wood structures unit explicitly targets the mid-rise housing deficit. How are you advising senior, student, and affordable housing developers to look at Type 3 and Type 5 wood framing as a faster, more financially viable alternative?
Yeah, I think the market already really understand, like, as far as cost efficiency, I think the market knows that the wood frame, the Type 3, Type 5 is probably the most efficient right now. I think right now, like I said, we're exploring as far as the more modular and potentially the mass timber side. But so for us in advising relative to Type 3 and Type 5, it's more about the process of getting somebody on board and bringing somebody, getting involved, getting someone on board earlier, so that they can be part of that certainty of outcome, right? Of being able to help answer questions and put budget studies together. I think that's the efficiency happening in the Type 3 and Type 5 market, and thus the accelerated schedules that could happen through that. But I think for the most part, the Type 3 and Type 5, I think it's known that it's probably the most cost efficient right now.
It does seem to be the most cost efficient. It also, I would assume, costs have risen with the increase in the price of lumber since, say, pre-pandemic levels. Sure. Are you seeing that?
I think cost has gone up. We had a spike for sure, right? And right after the pandemic, I think it's normalized itself. I think the market is normalized. I think that there's some uncertainty with the tariffs earlier in the year, and we got a lot of letters from trade partners and suppliers saying that there's potential impacts, or there's anticipated impacts. We haven't seen real impacts as much that have come from that, especially with what became of the tariffs. But I think so. On the wood side, although it went through a spike, it didn't impact the market that much where it sustained that spike, and it's still probably the most cost efficient system.
That's great to hear, because I just read the headlines, which tend to highlight volatility. So thank you for clarifying that things have calmed down a bit. So we're down to the final question, where we will close with the question for each of you, the same question. As you look ahead over the next decade, what development trends or opportunities are you most optimistic about? And what should business and community leaders be paying attention to? And we'll start with Sydney.
Thank you, Heather. It's crazy to think forward in the next decade because I've been here at the city of Lancaster for almost a decade, which crazy, I know, because I don't look a day over 18, and how is that possible? But somehow, some way, I made it to 2026, and it's almost a decade in. But all of that aside, I think one of the things that I myself am super optimistic about is just being able to look at communities instead of looking at like individual projects, looking at communities as complete ecosystems, and whether that be combining, workforce and jobs, housing, quality of life, recreation, infrastructure, like what does all of that look like combined together to make a whole ecosystem of a community? I think, there's tremendous opportunities that are coming out with AI and some of that other stuff. And I know that scares people because they think, oh, is AI going to take over the world? Is AI going to take my job? But I think that there's a lot of opportunities where we can use AI to be working, alongside us, not necessarily replace us, but working alongside of us. And what is that going to look like? When I think back 10 years ago and technology and where that used to be versus where it is today and what we're going to have in a decade, it does really excite me to see, what that's going to look like, what that does to development, what that does to housing, to quality of life, all of the stuff that I said earlier, like how does that impact it? And so, I think that it's really important for community leaders specifically to be looking at everything very holistically and what happens to a community when they intentionally build it out, when they're thoughtful about where developments are going, when they're thoughtful about where the infrastructure that they're putting in, especially for a community like us where we have room to grow and we're not looking at just infill development. I think it's exciting to see and to think about it and be able to grow, especially here in Lancaster. The Lancaster that I started working in 10 years ago looks completely different than the one today, and hopefully completely different than the one that we're going to see in 10 years. And so I'm just excited to see, what that's going to look like and be able to shape that for the next generation.
Thank you, Sydney. Elton, are there development trends or opportunities that you're particularly optimistic about?
Yeah, for me, I think the development trends, I think, like we've been covering here, it's funny that the conversation since Senator on this is just the whole trend of collaboration. I think that is truly, you see it socially becoming more and more prevalent as well. It's just like something that it is recognized more just in the social environment that we're in, right? And wanting more of that. And so then that trend I see like, over the next decade, how that plays out, right? You see a lot more public agencies using progressive design build and these other integrated forms of engagement with in the design and building process. So how far is that going to take us? Is that going to lead us to a way better process and product in the future? That's super exciting. And then like Sydney mentioned, you can't have a forward-looking conversation without mentioning AI, right? And so the trends of, how will AI affect our very segregated industry, right? That's very, very separate. There's a lot of entities. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces in our industry, and how the AI is going to affect that. I've seen on the designer side, like they've been able to iterate a lot quicker on potential designs, and so then that's exciting. But the big thing for me is just the collaboration and that trend and that flowing through and how developments and construction is moving forward.
Well, that's incredible. This conversation leaves me with tremendous optimism. Sydney, I like your thinking about holistic development models and how quality of life should be centered in every development project. And Elton, how collaborative project delivery models will get us there in a more efficient manner. Thank you both for your time today. It's been delightful to speak with you.
Thank you, Heather.
Yes, thank you.
Heather, thank you for guiding today's really important conversation. Elton and Sydney, I want to also thank you for sharing your expertise, offering a lot of really great insights, perspectives on opportunities, some challenges that still exist, and then obviously, some strategy for the future development across the entire county. I think it's clear when, we heard the word collaboration come up so many times, and I think it's clear that successful development, it requires collaboration amongst all the stakeholders, from the communities to the municipalities, to the builders, the businesses, the design professionals, all the way to the students learning today who will be designing for the future and working together to create long-term economic opportunity. I think just even in this discussion, we see some collaboration opportunities amongst the group here, which I think is fantastic. So I want to thank all of our partners and our sponsors for making this conversation possible. We do hope that you'll continue to join us in the conversation by tuning in to the other discussions that are part of our mid-year series, where we're also exploring a complete market update on office and industrial, which is so important. We take a look at capital markets, and then we look at the future of development through innovation, AI, and different opportunities. And then finally, the series wraps up with a printed recap edition in the Los Angeles Business Journal's August 3rd edition. And it's going to feature a lot of what you've seen in these videos, but additional insights, Q&A responses from all of our speakers who've taken now a really good comprehensive look at all of the trends that are shaping commercial real estate here in Southern California. So thank you all for tuning in once again, and we look forward to keeping you informed and talking again soon. Thank you so much.